Well, obviously, other than the post-credit scene, which I think is the most just memorable part of
Yes.
this episode by far. Let me look at my notes. Um, on the rewatch, I think I especially liked the little flashback where Nolan is talking to younger Mark about Viltrum, and we kind of see it. It shows us like a really nice, almost kind of utopian sort of world. Um, and Nolan's just like, yeah, once Viltrumites come to age, we're sent to other planets to kind of help use our powers for good. Um, it's an interesting, like, it's just a fun contrast between like the flashback that happens in like I think the last episode of season one, where we see like the Viltrumites are actually just brutal and they kill each other to just weed out the weak. Um, so that's a fun scene, and then it kind of jumps right into Mark flying.
Yeah.
Um, it's a very like obviously this is like the origin story episode. I mean, the whole thing's kind of his origin story, but this one especially kind of feels sort of like akin to Peter Parker's Spider-Man.
Mhm.
Mark's like he's a nerd. There's a bully,
Yeah.
but yeah, so that flashback scene is fun.
Yeah. I do
But
like that.
mostly just seeing Mark just as this awkward teenager that is getting used to suddenly being able to fly.
Mhm. How would you react to your dad telling you he has superpowers? What would you do? Like how did little Mark not like run around and tell all of his friends? I would immediately be like, "Oh my God, my dad can fly."
That's a really good it's a really good question.
Just kidding. I'm actually really good at keeping a secret, so I wouldn't tell anyone, but so actually I might be a super.
I yeah, I if my dad how old is Mark in that flashback? Like 10,
Yeah.
maybe.
Yeah.
Um, it's hard to gauge when it's animated,
I
but
also like can't tell children's ages. Like if a 5-year-old walked by me, I'd be like, yeah, he's 12.
no way.
Well, like not okay, not that drastic, but like I think the other day I like saw a 10-year-old and I was like, they're 13. And someone was like, no.
I mean, some of them I could see that like becoming harder and harder to kind of tell like 11 versus
Like
13 or whatever, but
year-olds are tall. Like they're big.
10-year-olds do get
I
decent.
meant I
Fourth
meant
grade, fifth grade.
2-year-olds. Two
You said what?
2-year-olds.
Oh, 2-year-olds?
Like I feel like 2-year-olds are still babies. Or I don't know. Anyways.
Yeah, yeah, 2-year-olds are babies. Um, I think, but if my dad told me he had powers and that I was at some point gonna have them,
Mm, that
then
part
that'd
too.
be pretty awesome. I think, especially knowing myself as like a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, um, just the type of cockiness you kind of have at that age. Like, God, I feel like I would be obnoxious about it at school,
Yeah.
with no like nothing to like back it up, because I don't have any powers.
Yeah.
But knowing me and knowing just like little kids in general, like
Hmm.
I probably would have just been like, yeah, just been bragging about it. Probably would have looked forward to like growing up more than I probably already
Oh, yeah.
time.
I
Um,
always like when I feel like when I was a kid, I always looked forward to growing up. Like I was always like, I
yeah,
want to be 18.
yeah. Now I want to like kind of want to go back, or at least just like stop aging for a few years.
No,
That'd be
I'm
nice.
sick of it. Sick
I
and
would, I'd love to be a Viltrumite where you just don't die.
I would hate that.
No, yeah, it would suck.
Um, have you ever tried flying? I think you should try. You live in
I
New York,
will
right?
say, I will
Like,
say, have you ever, and maybe this is like a nerd thing or like a guy thing,
uh,
or it's just a stupid me thing. 'Cause I've never like tried flying, but like there are times like even just like back home where I'd be like taking out the trash outside and be like nighttime, just look up and I'd be like I'd try and just like kind of will myself to just take off and it just doesn't happen.
I
I'm
can't.
talking like as a 24 like 23-year-old like I've done that.
I
Um
can't say I've ever done that, but I love your imagination, and I think now that you're in New York, like it's the perfect time to like try to fly. What floor do you live on of your apartment?
We're on the fourth floor, but we're right underneath the roof, so I
Oh,
could just walk up
yeah.
there and give it a try.
Yeah, you should try that and you should get back to me.
Yeah. Okay. I'll let you know.
Cool. Cool,
If
cool.
it, yeah. So there might be a big like LinkedIn update coming pretty soon. That'll be
In
awesome.
memoriam. Just kidding.
Oh, probably, yeah. But back to Invincible. What were what are your favorite moments from this episode?
Oh my gosh. That's a great question. I rewatching this again for the third time, I really loved watching the beginning scene with the two security guards.
Yeah.
I love that it's John Hamm as one of the security guards. I think they should bring him back in some way. I know we see him in one other episode, but I just think John Hamm has such a fun voice. I think he'd make a good voice actor. But you want to know who I also think would make a good voice actor for this series?
Who?
Patrick Warburton, the guy who voices Joe from Family Guy. I
From
just
Family
I
Guy, yeah.
recently went to Disneyland, um, and I did Soren, and he's like the pilot guy that
Oh, right, right.
you and I was just like, he has such an iconic voice. Like I need him in more things. So if if you're listening, Patrick Warburton.
I bet the show could, in a similar way, where like Seth Rogen is Alan, but like even though it's like such a recognizable comedic voice, you do start to just believe him as like this character. I think the show, like I think if Patrick Warburton was cast in a role, like it would be a similar. At first, it's like that's Joe from Family Guy,
Then
but
you're like,
then it'd be like no, it's that Viltrumite or something, whatever he plays.
I speaking of voice acting, I think and like casting people who have such recognizable voices, I think Invincible does such a good job at like casting people who do like voice acting and casting people who just like are themselves when they
Hmm.
like Mark Hamill, like the first time he was on or the first time we're introduced to his character, I had no idea it was Mark Hamill. Like and
Oh
then
yeah,
John Hamm, like you can tell it's John Hamm. If Patrick Warburton,
right.
you could tell it was him. So I think they do a really great job of balancing that. I was like watching a couple of the scenes, obviously, but I was like pausing them to see what different actors were in it. And there was this, I wish I wrote it down, but there was this one actor who voiced like three different characters in the episode, which was really cool. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, I think they do a really, really great job of casting in this show.
Yeah, they're really good. I know it. I think it's Ross Marquand, who voices the Immortal. And
Mhm.
he played this character on The Walking Dead. Also, fun thing, and if you're a fan of Invincible or you're a nerd at all, you probably are aware of this already. But all the Guardians are voiced by actors from The Walking Dead, or who played like decently major characters on that show.
Mhm.
And obviously Stephen Yeun was a huge character in that show, and it was a Robert Kirkman property as well. So just a fun like he like puts all these actors in these roles and then they all die. Um, but
Every
Ross Marquand he voices the Immortal, but he also voices I know he voices uh Rudy, who's supposed to be like a 13-year-old
yeah.
kid.
Ugh,
And he
same.
voices a lot of other like probably smaller characters. But those are like the two, I think, of the larger ones that he does. But he can actually like voice
Manipulate.
act. Yeah.